TikTok. It's time to rock, ladies and gentlemen. It is a special event for the channel after 2 weeks of desertion, 2 weeks of walkabout, 2 weeks of doing other things other than hanging out with us. Brad Sabbath. Brad Sabbath, ladies and gentlemen, has come back.
I'm back in black.
Good to see you, bro. We missed you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Missed you guys.
How's it been?
Well, as you can tell, probably very busy. I look tired. I feel tired. But I'm here. That's what's most important.
Fantastic. We see you've been having an amazing time from your social media posts.
Yes, I've had work parties. I've been racing to Gippsland and back, which is a 3.5 hour drive, like pretty much to Melbourne and back.
Wow.
Last weekend flew to a Thursday night in Sydney, a Friday night in Alice Springs, and then Saturday night Guns N' Roses. So quite an eventful weekend last weekend and the weekend before. So yeah, and working a full-time job and juggling being pretty much a full-time parent almost. So yeah.
You know what they say? You know what they say? No rest for the wicked, bro.
Well, that's it. But, how you gentlemen been? You guys are wicked as well. So you've been busy, I've seen, and I've watched a good portion of the shows. So that you guys have been doing while away, which is great.
Well, mate, we had a ball. We had Carl on, and we want to do a special shout out to Carl because we know that Carl watches a lot of the shows, and he was a revelation and a joy to have on for a couple of weeks, bro.
I actually thought after watching him that I thought you guys aren't going to want me back after having him back on.
Oh, mate, he kept us on our toes. The first show, we had technical issues.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. You know what Carl's like, mate. So at least he wasn't walking around taking us on tours through his pad. And he wasn't eating or cooking.
Make beans.
Yeah. We love you, bro. We know you're watching.
He wouldn't be Carl if he didn't. That's the problem. You see, you've got to. Oh dear, one of New Zealand's great eccentrics.
Ronnie was back. He did a great job, Carl. But I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you back, and we do look forward to, obviously, ladies and gentlemen. This is Brad's pick this week, so we've been going crazy on social media, and I want to do. While we're talking about that, I want to talk about a couple of things that's happened to the channel over the last couple of weeks, certainly the last couple of days. We took advantage and put a couple of links to this show on some big Black Sabbath Facebook groups. So we want to do a special shout out to the folks from those Black Sabbath Facebook groups. If you are watching this on a replay, please let us know, because the support you guys gave us on our posts on your Facebook groups was remarkable. You know, we had hundreds of people liking the post, guys, you know, and going through and labeling or naming their favorite song on this album. So we really appreciate that, Simon. That's what it's about.
Fantastic.
And of course we'll do the same thing here on our channel for anybody else, Brad.
Yeah. Look, that's so good, and thank you very much for everyone on that Black Sabbath Facebook group. But,
fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. We've done some others. Check them out.
Yes.
Yeah, we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll post. What I'll do after we've done this, I'll go through and I'll post a couple of those links on those. You know, some of those Facebook groups, guys. You know, I said to you guys in the green room. You know, one's 96,000, one's 72,000 members.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. Yeah. Well, you know, thank you everyone who has subscribed, and anyone that wants to subscribe, please press subscribe.
Please press the bell.
We want 9K.
We want
9K by Christmas.
9K.
We need 20 people. We're at 898. All we need is 20 people.
Christmas is 9K subscribers.
Look at us throwing ourselves at it. Honestly,
we've got some cool people in the chat here, but hold on. The Rock Professor's going to do a couple of shout outs to you guys. Obviously,
yes.
We'll always do that. Couple of other things before we kick off the show, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a couple of shows planned coming up. Obviously, on the 18th, New Zealand and Australia time, we've got the channel's annual Christmas show. We did that last year, and the Rock Professor and I have done a couple before then. But what we're going to do is we're going to do the same format we did last year. We're going to stream for 8 hours, 6 hours, taking the different time zones. Brad, we're going to have people popping in, saying hi, hanging out 10, 15, 20 minutes. If you want to participate on that, Hugh, if you want to participate, Arvin, Johnny, I can see you guys there. Alan, anybody that wants to participate, come in and hang out with us for 10, 15 minutes, let us know.
Yeah, 100%.
It'll be great. Yeah, it'll be really good fun if you could pop in. Stuff.
Looking forward to that. That should be fun.
Usual mayhem.
Yeah,
I think we'll do okay. We're going to have a couple of people that are going to hang out with us the whole time.
Cool. Brilliant. That's fantastic.
Oh, Keith Campbell volunteered his services to be
good, excellent,
to be a host for the whole show. Very dear friend of the channel.
Yeah.
And one other thing too, before I pass it on to my other co-hosts, Brad and I and the Rock Professor are trying to finalise a date for you guys where we can just be here with you before New Year's to talk about our favourite 5 top things that happened this year. Again, we did that show last year and it was really, really, really good. Got a lot of feedback from it. Our 5 negative or bad experiences over the year, and I promise it's not political. There's no politics. It's true.
We've had 93 prime ministers. Is that good or bad?
And 5 things that we want, or that we hope, or something that we want to look forward to, or we want to see happen. Brad, in the next 12 months. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out.
Yeah, 100%. We're hoping to keep a monarch for another 12 months.
No, could that be conceived as political talk or patriotic? Because we can be patriotic. You know, I'm a Kiwi, we've got an Aussie, and we've got an Englishman, so we are patriotic.
Or satirical. Slightly satirical, which apparently is allowed.
Okay, all right.
No further.
I think that's all I've got to do in the intro. I think, Rock Professor, you've got. I'm going to isolate you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to do my. I've got an unboxing. I've got to be careful. It's got several versions of my address on the other side. Although I do particularly like it. Says to Simon Williams, the British Blues Show. So my house has been rechristened the British Blues Show. So I'm going to quickly open this and show you guys. I do know what it is, but well, I hope I do. Anyway, oh my God, need more scissors. You wanna? There we are. That's it.
I hope it's from that clean website, Simon, and not the naughty one.
Well, precisely. You see, that's exactly it, Brad. You see, you never know, do you? But although these days, that's not analog these days, is it? It's oh my God.
I don't know anything about what Brad's talking about.
I thought someone might have.
It's what you do when you're on tour, Andrew. You know, when you spend hours in a van. These rock and roll bands, they. I have to say, it's very well packed, Mr. Schaefer. Thank you very much. It's very well, Schaffner. It's very well packed. Jeff and Bob. That's blimey. See, I thought I'd prepare myself with a pair of scissors, but clearly I'm either unable to use the scissors, which is
We don't want blood.
Oh, I don't know. Hey, anything's good for subs, isn't it?
It'll make for a good story online, won't it?
It'll make for a tremendous story.
British Electric Blues host cuts himself to ribbons trying to open a book.
Yes. Man on YouTube cuts himself.
Oh my Lord.
So there we are, kids. Look at that.
Look at
Well
that.
done.
Look at that. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Jeff and Bob. That's fantastic to finally get my hands on this fantastic book that you've produced.
Back cover, please.
Back cover.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
By the way, he did it. This one, he did it. Not trying to. So yes, guys, thank you very much for that. Fantastic.
And we're very happy and very
apparently.
proud to be associated with with this publication. We've done a few videos over the past 12 months, and bear in mind and stick with us because we're going to be promoting another gig that Bob and Jeff have planned for February next year. So we're going to be doing a couple of videos and promotions for that as well. So we're going to get them on. They're going to be on our Christmas show as well too. So
yes.
So they're going to pop on and hang out with us. And I was speaking to Bob a couple of days ago, ladies and gentlemen. They've sold out. They've sold out, Brad.
They've sold out like they're selling out, or they're sold out.
They've sold out.
Sold out to the man.
That's probably happened a long time ago,
fantastic,
selling out. But yeah, they've sold the book out, which they said is a good thing, but also a negative thing. So we'll look forward to having them tell us a little bit more about that.
What's the negative thing? They have to do some more.
They've got nothing to sell, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, anyway, thank you very much for that, guys. That's fantastic, and I'm really pleased. I should go and look at it later after the show and peruse. But it looks beautiful. Looks really nice.
And we'll look forward to doing some more unboxings. I should have my book here within the next couple of days, so we'll do that as well. So the Rock Professor kindly is just showing us a cover there, and we look forward to having Bob on and Jeff talking about their book, and we look forward to it.
Yeah, that'd be really good. Fantastic.
We've got some people in the chat.
Shall I say hello to people in the chat? Yeah, I'll say hello to people in the chat. Stones fan was in earlier. I'll just tell hello. Arvin, of course. Good morning, Arvin. Gret Zeppelin. Morning, Gret.
Stones fan is from Brisbane. He can't.
Is he? Ah, cool.
Yeah, he can't watch us on our time because he's doing something. He works, but he always watches our after show when he gets back from work. So he always sends nice messages.
Well, he left a nice message before the show started. So definitely a shout out to him. Ellen as well. Good morning, Ellen. How are you? Hope you're good. I've got Hugh Caldwell, my fellow UKian. Morning, Hugh.
He'll be on here too.
Yes, excellent. I'm looking forward to having you on, Hugh. You and me getting up early. We've got Ellen, Hugh, Jonas Hallberg. Good morning, Jonas. Hope you're good. Johnny Heartbreaker as well. Morning, Johnny. I think that's everyone who's left a comment. Hugh, Arvin. Yep. So morning to everyone. Thanks for joining us again. It's good to see you all. Hope you're all well. And we're ready to roll, I think, kids.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. Rock and roll.
Yes, indeed.
Rock and roll, guys. Rock and roll. Black Sabbath.
So this week's mighty album is Black Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
So you can take it away, Brad. Take it away, Brad, the orchestra leader.
Master of reality. Master of reality. Yes. I can't believe we haven't actually done this album already, guys. I'm actually a bit shocked because I personally absolutely love this album, and as much as I love, we've done we did a couple of this lineup with Aussie, and we've done Heaven and Hell. I'm just sitting back looking through what we haven't done, and I thought, why the hell haven't we done this one? So I'm glad that we're now finally doing it and giving it a little bit of a nod, because it actually is, in my opinion, one of their heaviest sort of albums. And it actually is, from my perspective, where a lot of metal bands draw their influence from this record. I reckon it's this one. This one in particular is, it's got a lot of dark heaviness going on in the album, as well as some light. But a lot of it's down to the fact that Tony Iommi downtuned his guitar 1.5 steps. There was 2 reasons he did it. Obviously, was to reduce that string tension because of his. And I know, we won't sort of double up too much on the information on that. You can watch one of the earlier rankings we've done on Tony Iommi, where he's 72 fingers in an industrial accident. So he tuned down to make it less painful for him. But also, the bonus for him was also to help produce what he called a bigger and heavier sound. And Geezer Butler obviously downtuned his bass as well to match. And I think that in, when you listen to the way Ozzy sings and the way Bill Ward plays drums, this is what I call the pure, raw meat and potatoes, nuts and bolts Black Sabbath that everyone refers to, in my opinion. I know everyone's got their favorite Black Sabbath record. This is one of mine. This one is definitely a very dry album. It's not overproduced with lots of different effects and stuff. There's reverbs, there's stuff going on, but it's an amazing record, and I hope you guys agree. So it was released on the 21st of July 1971. They recorded most of the album, or all of it, at Island Studios in London. They recorded in February, I think it was the 7th to the 15th in 1971, and then in April 6th to the 13th, produced by Roger Bain, who also produced the band's prior 2 albums, which is Black Sabbath and Paranoid, which are phenomenal records as well. So This is their 3rd official studio record. And there's lots to say about this record, but I found some interesting quotes from the band members, and I just thought I'd just use these as part of this introduction. So it sets the scene for, us ranking the tracks. I think, who better to get this information from than the people that were involved in making the record. That's just how I always see it. So Bill Ward explained that they used to never really have a clue what they were doing in the studio, and they relied quite heavily on Roger Bain. But this time around, when they were together, they understood what was involved, and they were more opinionated on how things should be done. So I think that has a lot to do with this record as well. I mentioned that Tony Iommi tuned down his guitar 1.5 steps, which for anyone who doesn't play guitar or doesn't understand that, it's tuning the pitch down of the whole guitar 1.5 steps instead of it being in concert pitch. They've tuned it down 1.5 steps, so it's a lot darker sounding, and probably
so that's
sounds
in C sharp.
Yes, and it probably sounds
so instead of E, it's in C sharp.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it probably sounds a little bit incorrect to people that are musically educated and don't like stepping outside the boundaries and stick to standard tuning. When they listen to this, they're probably a bit sideways at it, looking at it, going, "What the hell's going on there?" So I know that when they did that, Geezer Butler mentioned, this is one of his statements here, we got to a point where we tuned down even lower to make it easier for vocal wise as well, but Ozzy would then sing higher, and it sort of defeat the purpose of what they were doing. But effectively the biggest reason they did it for was Tony Iommi. Children of the Grave, Lord of This World, and Into the Void are 1.5 steps down on this record. So on Ozzy's got an autobiography out called I Am Ozzy, and he states that he can't really remember much about recording this album. Apart from the fact Tony,
you amaze me.
Yeah, apart from the fact that Tony obviously tuned his guitar to make it easier for him, Geezer wrote Sweet Leaf about the wacky tobacco they were smoking. I'm not going to mention it for reasons because I don't want to get flagged. And Children of the Grave, he said, was their most kick-ass song they ever recorded. So that was out of Ozzy's autobiography. Bill Ward also elaborated in an interview he did in 2016. He goes, on the first album, we had 2 days to do everything and not much more time for Paranoid, but now we could take our time and try out different things. We all embraced the opportunity. Tony threw in classical guitar parts. Geezer's bass was virtually doubled in power. I went for bigger bass drums, also experimenting with overdubs. Which we'll get to when we get to the rankings. He said, and Ozzy was so much better. This is the first time when we didn't have gigs booked and we could just focus on making a record. And he called it a landmark album. So that's something that we're going to obviously talk about too. Ozzy's singing on this record is fantastic, in my opinion. It's he does a great job. Iommi, in 92, he did an interview in Guitar World, and this is one of his quotes here. During Master Reality, we started getting more experimental and began taking too much time to record. Ultimately, I think it really confused us. Sometimes I think I'd really like to go back to the way we recorded the first 2 records. I've always preferred just going into the studio and playing without spending a lot of time rehearsing or getting sounds. The song Into the Void was especially problematic, with Iommi revealing in the same interview, we tried recording Into the Void in a different couple of studios, and Bill just couldn't get it right. Whenever that happened, he would start believing he wasn't capable of playing the song. He'd say, to hell with it, I'm not doing this. There was one track like that on every album, and Into the Void was the most difficult one on Master of Reality. Also in his Tony Iommi's autobiography, which is great, Iron Man, My Journey Through Heaven and Hell with Black Sabbath, he describes that Ozzy Osbourne had also experienced some difficult time recording vocals. It has a slow bit where the riff where Osbourne comes in singing very fast. Osbourne had to sing really rapidly, rocket engines burning fuel so fast up until the night sky they blast. Quick words like that. Geezer had written out all the words for him. Seeing him trying it was hilarious. Obviously, I believe Iommi is saying that, not having a dig at Ozzy, saying that in that particular time it was very funny. Sure something that also happened, which is something that's very important on this record, and it opens with this particular moment. During the album's recording session, Osbourne bought Iommi a large wacky tobacco cigarette, and which caused the guitarist to cough uncontrollably. And Iommi was recording acoustic guitar parts at the time, and he went into a coughing fit, and they caught it on tape. And obviously that fragment of that cough, they later added it to Bane put it as the intro to Sweet Leaf, which now is, what would you call it? Iconic. It's that iconic before the riff comes in. It's just insane the way that this is the wonderful thing about that period of time. They recorded things that were experimental, not just musically, but with other things in life that made them do things completely different than they probably normally would have. Iommi reckons they played Sweet Leaf while they were stoned. He said completely they were stoned. He does remember writing Sweet Leaf in the studio, Butler said, and they didn't know what else they could write about. And he took out a pack of cigarettes and opened it, and on the lid it said, "The sweetest leaf that gives you taste." I was like, Sweet Leaf. So they wrote a song about Sweetleaf. So that's a very funny little story there. And you can see these guys weren't taking themselves too seriously. I think the critics and the press and everything were obviously, from my opinion, probably glorifying a lot of this stuff. The Sweetleaf is if anyone doesn't know, it's not about a relationship. It's about having a relationship with Wacky Tobacco. All right, so. Butler was their primary lyricist and bassist, and he had a very religious Catholic upbringing. And the song "After Forever" really focuses on Christian themes. At the time, Black Sabbath were suspected by some observers of being Satanists due to their dark sound and their image and their lyrics. But if you listen to that, I think when I listen to After Forever, for me, the lyrical content is a little bit opposite to what probably people assume it's about. So go and have a listen to that. I think the Geezer Butler would be the one that would be able to tell you what the song is truly about. But After Forever was released as a single, and I think it was B-side was Fair Is Wear Boots from Paranoid from memory. Obviously, the album is very one-directional, except for one exception, two exceptions, sorry. And there's a song on there, Solitude, which showcases Iommi's multi-instrumental skills. He's playing guitar, flute, piano, and obviously Ozzy Osbourne's singing on that. When we get to it, he's got double tracking vocals going on and stuff like that. But this album, I think, is extremely important, and I'm glad and grateful we're doing this one now, guys. So, have you gentlemen got anything you want to add to this?
Well, I was going to ask when you first heard it, Brad.
Okay, for me, I did hear this album in its entirety through my friend who I mentioned on here before, Luke Foley. His brother, Brad Foley, top bloke, because he's got a nice name, Brad, was a big So, that's where I got this from. And, if Luke Foley ever watches this, I reckon 90% of the music I listen to today is stuff that we used to listen to all those years ago. So, how about you, Simon?
Well, this is for Sabbath. This is where I came in with Sabbath. I think this is the first Sabbath album I got. I think my friend Tony Bainbridge, who lives in Melbourne, he had Volume 4. So I didn't, because we tended to listen to stuff together. I didn't buy Volume 4. I bought Master of Reality, bought the previous one. So I had Masters of Reality, and we went to this. I think I think the second gig I went to was in 1973. Went to see them at the Colston Hall, where they were doing quite a lot of the stuff off here: Children of the Grave, Embryo, Sweet Leaf. All albums off here. So it's a very familiar album to me. And yeah, I've known it since not since it came out. I was too young in 1971, but I would have got it in 1973, probably 72, 73, and listened to it since then. So I'm really cool. Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, I've got my brother to thank for introducing me to this album, and I want to do a special shout out to Joe Walton, because he does watch a few of our videos, and he's concerned that I don't mention him when we talk about music. So here is your moment, bro.
The Waltons. Hello, Joe. Yeah. Yes.
Joe and Albert Romley especially, they were the guys that introduced me to this album. And it's interesting, Brad, that you should talk about this being a really, really favourite album, because I was familiar with Black Sabbath. I was familiar with Volume 4. Those two, we're talking about, this early era of Black Sabbath. And so these two albums were definitely under my belt. Oh, and Paranoid. So I think I was listening to at least Black Sabbath, Simon, for about maybe 12 months before I heard this album. And hearing this album, it was like, it's like a different band. almost. You know, the juxtaposition of the sounds, except for obviously clearly Ozzy's vocals, which, you know, are consistent through all the Black Sabbath albums. But yeah, like you said, Brad, quickly became one of my favourite albums. And as you said, an inspirer of other bands. In particular, if I can mention this, another band in the mid 1990s, Corrosion of Conformity, came out with an album called Albatross, or I think it's Albatross, a song called Albatross on it, tuned down. Everything's tuned down. You know, and you try doing that, Brad. You know, I grabbed one of my Les Pauls and tuned it down a whole, and it's like, what? Well, it's a different technique, bro.
It's a different world. It's a different world when the guitar is tuned down that low. Try doing that on a bass. When you tune a bass down at 1.5 steps, it's a different world altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Interesting.
So it brings in a different level of musicianship. So, but yeah, hugely influential album, and I'm glad we're doing it. Incidentally, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last rankings of the tracks for the channel for the year too. So another little tick milestone for the channel. Thank you, bro. Thank you for picking a great album.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely an album that I'm glad we're giving this amount of time and energy to. It deserves it. So we should get into the track rankings, gentlemen. What do you think?
Cool. Hey, Tim.
Let's do it. Yeah. Morning, Tim.
All right, gentlemen. Well, the album starts off with the magical Sweet Leaf. Starts off with Iami coughing, and then that really tough riff just comes straight in. It just comes straight in. It's like they're not mucking around. It's magic how they've done that. It's iconic. Every single guitarist that's into hard rock and the supergroup era of the 70s knows and wants to play this riff on guitar, you know, or try to play it. Yeah, like it's like one of those ones you sit down and you try to play it. Ozzy Osbourne comes in and in my opinion, it's one of his greatest vocal albums of the early era for him. I mean, Black Sabbath and Paranoid, he sings great, but he's really found his feet on the ground on this album, in my opinion. He's singing with a lot of conviction, and he's singing very, what's the word? I've lost the word, it's escaped me, but he's giving every single part of his inner and outer. You can hear him pushing so hard with his vocal. Bill Ward plays amazingly on this song. There's some wonderful bass playing from Geezer Butler. Second time through, Tony Iommi starts playing like a unison higher note for anyone who's trying to learn it. It's along with the riff, which adds a little bit of color. At around 2 minutes 28, we have a double time fill that leads into a guitar solo from Tony Iommi, and it's a wonderful solo, very classic. Tony Iommi. There's some fantastic bass and drumming underneath that frantic solo from Tony. There's some wonderful drum fills, and then it goes back into the main riff again. Ozzy singing fantastically on this song. I really enjoy the lyrical content of this song as well. I find a bit of humor in it. It's very cool. But the one thing I will say is this, and I mentioned this to my drummer, Nick, who plays in Appetite for Destruction with me and Rewind 80s. And we were talking about how influential this record actually is to so many bands. And you listen to the likes of Metallica, and Metallica wouldn't be Metallica without this album. So I have to give this song 10 out of 10. It's never a skip for me. Who's going next?
Me,
the Rock Professor. because he's had the pleasure of seeing this act. So he's drawn the dagger. You've got the broadsword. He's got the dagger. I've got the butter knife.
I've been assigned slots too.
I've got the teaspoon.
Yeah, could I say, before anyone starts to feel sorry, it's self-inflicted. He sends me a message going, Brad, you, me.
I do not. I do not. These guys send me messages saying, if Brad goes first again this week, I'm out of here. If I'm not going second.
Why does everyone like going after me?
You went second last week. I want to go second this week. I said, okay, all right then.
Yeah. I went second last week and the week before and this week. clearly.
Simon, you're welcome to go first, honestly. You're welcome to go first here if you want.
You mean, no. There'll be plenty of chances for me to go first, I'm sure. So, anyway, Sweetleaf, yes. The riff apparently was taken from Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention's Hungry Freaks Daddy. I don't know if you listened to that, but yeah. And it can also be heard on the end of the Red Hot Chili Peppers song, Give It Away. And it definitely can. And is the basis for the song Rhyming and Stealing by the Beastie Boys. They are. That's what my research threw up that you didn't mention. Hooray. Yeah. Something I can say. So, yes, it definitely is on the Red Hot Chili Peppers one. I completely agree with you. I think the way that the bass and the guitar play a lot of stuff together, don't they? Play all the riffs together, completely, tight, almost as one thing, almost indistinguishable. Especially if you start tuning things down. So that's a particular thing that they do really well. I also noted the double octave guitar plays the riff under the second verse, just a bit of added interest, just to play. And I think that double guitar thing that Iommi does is a feature of this record, isn't it? When he does twice, but not quite the same. What's interesting, isn't it? Like the solos, he plays, and then he'll play another part that's like 3/4 the same, but a quarter not the same.
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty cool, I mean, I think that's rather than just double track the guitar solo to play this, you play something, it's more interesting. But and so you've got a gong in it. Let's be fair, kids. What song is not improved by having a gong in it? It's as you say, Brad. It's a Sabbath classic, isn't it? It is one of those classic songs that I don't know. I feel it's a classic anyway. I feel it's one of those absolute, Sabbath classics. Great riff, and also showcases that what they seem to do is they have a riff, then they have another riff, and then they have another riff, and they kind of meld them all together so that they make a song. So that there's, even you're keeping it up, you're keeping the interest up. It's not one riff all the way through. They'll do one riff, they'll do an intro riff, then they'll do a main riff, then they'll do, other stuff, which I think is, clearly they had an eye on keeping the interest of people, because when you don't have effects and you don't have lots of, ways of producing things, you have to think of other ways, don't you? More creative ways of doing it, and those sorts of things are more creative, and we can get into those as we go through. I've given this 9.5 out of 10. Never a skip. And that's a Sabbath classic for me. Andrew.
Wow. I just want to do a quick shout out to Robert Ranford, very good friend of the channel. Robert is doing some great work. He's building some great guitars. Robert, when you want to come on the channel and present your guitars with us next year, please come on. Come on, you have a permanent invitation, brother, to join us to talk about guitars and music. Always enjoy your posts. Thank you, and especially for hanging out with us. Just got a message from a very good friend of mine, and we all know who he is. He's just said something quite interesting. He said Black Sabbath is a 3-piece band with a singer. I get where he's going with that, so we can talk about that a little bit more. That's Carl, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. He said that. Don't always not making comments here. He's incognito. All right now. Look, I love that, Brad.
He's disguised at Robert Ranford.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Just immediately after that coffin that Brad has given us a succinct intro into why and how that happened. We didn't know back in the day, Brad, what the hell was going on. We kind of assumed, it had to do with smoking something and glass things and,
windows.
Cheech and Chong things, up and smoke things,
Cheech and Chong.
Yeah. Great, Cheech and Chong. Anyway, look, I've got to agree with you guys, especially that music that has some hypnotic momentum to it, which is unlike anything else that Black Sabbath have done. So it's a cracking opener as far as the intro between, as the rock professor said, between the drums and the bass especially. What I always liked, though, about the song, though, is, there was this disillusionment with reality. This is what I perceived it to be with my friends. So, obviously, they're summoning the power of self-realization through drug use, which is not uncommon for rock and roll. The Beatles did it. Paul McCartney, Got to Get You Into My Life on the Revolver album is an ode to pot-smoking Brad, So, these English guys love it, don't they, Simon? Yeah. They'll sing about Sweet Leaf till the cows come home.
Man.
And they do a great job. You kind of sort of, Brad, when I hear this song after listening to it, in preparation for this show, you kind of get this view, when you're hearing it, you're sort of looking through this haze of smoke, because people are just being mesmerized by the sweet leaf. I still get that feeling when I hear this song. It brings me back to, being 14, 15, 16. Never get tired of it. I've given this a 9 out of 10. Simon, great opener though. Great opener. And that's a high 9 too, Simon and Brad. High 9.
I think that an album that starts with "All right now, won't you listen" is a kind of, that's a cool opening, isn't it? It's kind of beckoning the listener in as well. It's kind of
jazz cigarettes. Cool. Hugh's got it. You're right.
Jazz cigarettes.
That's it.
That's it, Hugh. Them and their jazz cigarettes. Oh dear.
Yes, well, from the wonderful, powerful riff of Sweet Leaf, where we're graced with After Forever, the second track in, such a strong opening track. You think, how am I going to follow this up with a song after that? And they damn well do a great job on this one, After Forever. I love the intro of this song. The underlining bass, Tony's guitar playing over the top just sounds fantastic.
Yep.
Bill Ward, this is an amazing, it really highlights his amazing feel on the drums and throughout the song. His feel on this song is amazing. Ozzy Osbourne, again, his vocals are very strong. It sounds fantastic. Great lyrical content. The main riff, it's classic Black Sabbath feel to me. You're starting to get like the early albums amalgamating into something new here, but it still sounds classic here. You can't underestimate Bill Ward's drumming. He really makes Black Sabbath have that sound, in my opinion. You can say as much as you like about Geezer Butler and Tony Iommi, tuning down, 1.5 steps to get a tone or whatever it may be. But Bill Ward really gives this band that kick that it needs. I don't think any other drummer would have been able to do this album or that early era of Sabbath, the classic era of Sabbath, in my opinion, is, like Carl said, it's a 3-piece with a singer. And I think these 3 guys, Bill Ward was a big part of their sound. It's like a musical journey. We've got ups and downs through this song. Some very, very powerful words. throughout the song. We also hear like a, like Simon mentioned, there's like 2 or 3 sections that lead into then leads you back to the start. We hear another new riff that leads us into a guitar solo, which is a classic Tony Iommi solo. He paints pictures with his lead guitar playing through that section. Again, we hear that intro riff come back after the solo, another Ozzy Osbourne verse, and then like just a wonderfully powerful song, musically, sonically, lyrically. I love it. It's one of my favorites on the album. I have to give it like 100 out of 10. It's an epic song, epic. Simon.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's a feature of, I think, this era, Sabbath, certainly, that Geezer Butler's clearly the man who writes all the lyrics, is clearly quite a deep thinking guy, and gets into some quite interesting questions, in a sort of in a rock setting. Is God just a thought within your head? It's quite, is an existential question that troubles philosophers now. See Stephen Fry talking about it recently with somebody else. But so I think that that the lyrics are really interesting, and they do say something, and they are trying to, in keeping with that 1971, that period of rock albums where the future is wide open.
Yep.
Now, you can write about anything. We can talk later about what else he's writing about. But I think that that it lifts these things, in a different way. I mean, they're quite real questions, quite real things that sorry, that he's writing about and Ozzy's singing about. And kind of interesting, philosophical questions, really, that they within that setting, and I think that's really interesting. I think that apparently Geezer Butler said that he wrote it, about the about the troubles in Northern Ireland between the Protestants and the Catholics.
Oh, okay.
And not. He said to me it was just ridiculous. I thought if God could see us killing each other in His name, He'd be disgusted. And that's one of the great kind of questions of our time. Why is God standing by and letting this happen? But I completely agree with you, Brad. I think that again, this is a very good example of we have an intro riff, and then we have a kind of verse riff, and then we have what I think I've noted it quite a few times on tracks on this, what I would call a chorus riff. You don't have a chorus, but you have a chorus riff. You know what I mean? It's like you have a different thing after the end of each verse. They don't necessarily, Ozzy doesn't sing in it, but it's definitely, it's what I would call a chorus riff because it contrasts. Then they go back to the main riff kind of thing.
Yeah. I
also agree with you about the solo as well. And the, I know we've got an effect. It's called panning. So to do it that with the panning is quite. You listen to it on headphones, it's quite woo. Look at that zooming around your head, which is lovely, and a kind of a melodic break to the end. I gave this a 9 out of 10, and never a skip. A really interesting song. Yeah, really good.
Andrew.
Some good comments from people in the chat. Always appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Roberts and Johnny are in there, and Ellen as well. Thank you. I've got to agree with what Brad said. There's a groovy happening here, especially with the bass and that intro. It's something groovy going on. It's fantastic. And there's nothing obscure with the lyrics as far as I'm concerned. It's contract-fulfilling lyrics by Black Sabbath. And I'm glad that the Rock Professor mentioned where the lyrics came from, because that was something that I came across a couple of years ago when I was reading something else about political songs that you didn't think were political songs. And, this song certainly came up in the context of the troubles in Northern Ireland. So I kind of listened to this song since with different ears, because you would kind of think maybe it was just a song by some secular humanists having a crack at, established established institutions. And if you think that, well, that's fine anyway, because that's what songs are about, Brad. You go away and get any interpretation you want about it. The real debate, the real discussion, the real fun is analysing the lyrics or what the song means for you, isn't it, Simon? You know, that's what we do here on this channel, and this is what other journalists, you know, have been doing for years and years in the history of rock and roll. We're all doing it. We're all participating in that interpretation of a song. I always loved this song too, Brad and Simon, and I'm glad that you guys mentioned about you know, the intellectual capacity of the songwriter. I always thought that too. You know, these English guys, and we've mentioned it before. We've seen it with Led Zeppelin as a recent example because of the Zoso show. You know, these guys are really clever and smart people, and this is pre-internet, guys. This is where you could just pull out your phone, Brad, and get the world at the at your fingertips. You know, you had to have conversations with people and read shit back in these days, like really read stuff. Clearly, Simon, these guys were doing that, and in their capacity as being ordinary working class kind of guys, not paid to go to some academy to get trained to read. You know, these guys were fitting it in between making knives and forks at this cutlery factory, Simon, you know what I mean? And getting fingers chopped off, Brad. And because of that, I have to give this a Brad score too. I just think it fulfills everything. It's a remarkable song. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Look, something about the first 3 tracks on this record that definitely they just keep seeming to get a little bit heavier and a little. It's like this next track, "Children of the Grave." Now,
are we not doing Embryo?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I always do this.
It's only a little one.
Embryo. I always see it like as part of Children of the Grave. I apologise.
Me too.
Oh, okay, interesting. Yeah, okay.
And I have got a note here if we could do maybe the 2 songs rankings together instead of separating it, if that's possible. Like I rank Embryo and then rank Children of the Grave, and then someone does it and then you do it, Andrew. Is that okay if we do it that way?
Yeah. Whatever, bro. Whatever. I've just got 2 words for embryo.
Yeah. So Embryo. I mean, it's more of an intro to the next song, in my opinion. It's a standalone sort of little introductory piece to the next section, a powerhouse of what's to come. It's kind of like opening, you know, the door and opening the window into the you know, to the darkness, and then we're going into the dark section now. So it's wonderful what Tony Iommi's playing there. It's beautiful. I gave that a 10 out of 10, just that little intro piece, because it's a wonderful little section. And then we get into Children of the Grave, which honestly, I think this is one of the heaviest songs on the album, or at least at this point. The overdub percussion from Bill Ward, that tension it adds. The riff is just, it's heavy metal mastery, in my opinion. You know, Tony always gets, you know, the label, the godfather of metal. You want to talk about a song that's got 3-4 sections, Metallica, Megadeth, all these bands, include even Pantera, Soundgarden, all of them, you name it, Smashing Pumpkins, doesn't matter. They've all borrowed like ideas from this band, and this is the blueprint for those bands, this song in particular, 100%. Now, Ozzy comes in, he's sounding wonderful. He's got a great effect on his voice as well. I love that. I love the guitar overdubs that Tony does during the verses, those unison bends to add the tension. They're wonderful. That 2-minute 10 mark, the song takes on a new journey. And we have a new section in the middle of the song that's almost like a complete new song within the song. And they do this a lot. The riff is very heavy. There's some keyboards adding texture to the tone. and then we're back into the main riff again. Geezer and Bill, they sound fantastic. I mean, I'll put here heavy as F. That's in my notes. They're just heavy. You could take away the guitars and the drums and bass sound heavy alone. So they're just keeping this thing in that dark, what I call that early metal phase. Ozzy comes in telling us that we're all children of today are children of the grave. I mean, it's lyrically, I know he didn't write those lyrics, but it's like it's setting a scene, it's setting a mood for the song. We hear a fantastic solo from Tony Iommi, which is double tracked, reminiscent of the first album, where like Warning Sign, I think it is, and those songs where he double tracks his guitar solos, and that's something that became, I think, almost signature Tony Iommi. It's a heavy song. I love the tension. I love the outro. It's epic. It's another 100 out of 10 for me. It's never a skip. Simon.
It's yeah. It's again. This is Geezer Butler. Addressing. Apparently, he said he had sort of a nuclear war in his mind when he was doing this. But I think a lot of the lyrics are about an incitement to young people to revolution against what's gone before, and I think it has echoes today of things that kind of split. I think that if you want a better place to live in, spread the word today. It's it's absolutely what's going on here, and that's very much in keeping with 1971, that whole kind of alt vibe, hippie vibe still going on. From then, I think it's very pertinent these days. And that kind of socio-political engagement, that's going on now. It's I think it's really interesting, and it's not. There's a lot of, it's easy, isn't it, to think it's all goblins and fairies and kind of whatever, but this is not that by a long chalk. And I think in 1971 to have a kind of social conscience like that is interesting, really interesting, and in keeping with the times as well. Other bands clearly had it as well, but I agree with you. As I say, it has the double track guitars, which don't quite play the same thing. It's certainly in the solo where they do that, they've got the two guys playing harmony stuff, but not quite the same thing, which I think is really good. That's clearly a conscious thing, not just to double track the guitars, but to change something different. As you've said, Brad, it's that knitting together of three riffs at least, and again having a chorus riff. So what I would call a queen. Now, at the end of the verse, it goes into a different riff. Although he doesn't sing in it, it's still what I would call a chorus riff. And I think that's really interesting that musically, that's how it's shaped, even though it's not shaped like that vocally. They don't sing a chorus, but they do it. Like the keyboards as well for extra texture in the, for halfway through kind of coming in. And the whispered vocals at the end are quite kind of spooky, aren't they? Sort of chilled out. That's really cool. It's sort of a 9 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. It's great track. Andrew.
Awesome. Andrew.
Remarkable insights by the co-hosts, ladies and gentlemen. Remarkable. And I just want to sort of follow on with what the Rock Professor said too, which sort of filters back from the previous song, the campaign for nuclear disarmament in the UK and Europe around that time, the 1970s, gained a lot of momentum, and it was the English people's kind of clarion call, Simon, that the Americans had the Vietnam War as a focus point for a lot of the rebellion and statements from young people in the UK, especially. It was the campaign for nuclear disarmament, and those issues. So again, the Rock Professor's done remarkable there to highlight that. That's why he is called the Rock Professor. Yeah. Again, he's stealing notes, I'm sure, from me. It's easy to talk about ghosts and goblins. It's easy to think that it's about people, rising up, from the grave, Brad, and coming to haunt you, and all that kind of stuff, after you listen to a Black Sabbath album, you got to go and check under your bed. Make sure there's nothing under your bed, and go and have a look in your wardrobe. Make sure you close the wardrobe tight, Brad, and close the windows. We all. It's so easy.
Your pillow tight.
Yeah, you got it, bro. You got it. It's so easy to do that, and again, I suppose. Norman Mailer said something like this, didn't he? He said if, and again, I got to be careful how I say this because I'm not being judgmental. But if you've got a lazy mind, you're probably going to go down these tracks, and think that it is about ghosts and goblins, but it's a little bit more than that. And as the Rock Professor said, it's about building a future. Making a statement against this idea, of mutual self-destruction, which is just nuts, isn't it? And to think that these skinny English guys, and we've got some photos to show. We're going to show you some photos. These hairy dudes are talking about these heavy things. It's like mind-blowing. In 2022, it's mind-blowing that these young men, were even interested in talking about stuff like that. And I love that. The drum patterns, as Brad said, it's remarkable on this. That creative style that they've got in this band, that tremendous hypnotic ability that they have with their music to drive a song forward is remarkable. And then, as the Rock Professor said, you've got that delicate layering of guitars at that 4-minute mark, especially. It's just fantastic. It's a beautiful song. I've given it a 9.5 out of 10. But that's a solid 9.5, Brad. Yep. Can't quite give it a 10 out of 10. But please, am I still able to sort of stay here? I'm not timed out.
Of course you can. Forgive me if I missed it, gentlemen, but did you give your ranking on Embryo?
Oh no, I've got beautiful incarnate English ditty, and look, I love that because it's very English to me. It's a very English tune. I'm not surprised by it. I'm giving that a 9 out of 10 too. Yeah. Have we got someone here? One of the admins? Can they get rid of
Hughes got it.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Yeah, don't worry.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Beautiful.
Yes,
yeah. Well, that leads us to the end of side one, gentlemen.
Yeah. Could I say? 16 and a half minutes. Fine in my books, Everybody, it's like that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. I'm glad you think it's funny. We try to be.
Yeah. It's a couple of things I say. One is that, if you look at the lyrics and stuff, it's like, I don't know where they got all this satanic nonsense from, but I don't think the lyrics have anything to do with some kind of satanic kind of nonsense that they seem to have been, tagged with. Certainly, Andrew, we can, we'll discuss this a bit in a minute. But I don't think the lyrics have anything to do with that so far, have they? Side one, not even remotely, nowhere near it.
No, but I'm not going to pretend to be a Black Sabbath nut to the extent that I know that Brad is. But from a money-making business point of view, Black Sabbath knew that they were tapping into that.
Oh,
and they took it and they cashed that all the way to the bank, didn't they, Brad? They
100%.
Antichrist. Yeah.
And they were cashing the checks, brother. So
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Let's be honest.
Are you suggesting it's all marketing?
Well, you know what? They tapped into something they knew was working for them, and they just went with it. And what, from my, understanding what they were doing, is they were just doing what they wanted to do, and the critics and everything were amplifying it and promoting them. So it was like, of course, bad press is good press, good press is good press.
Yes, that's true. Yes, yeah. Yeah. No,
so
sure.
they did them a favor the critics did them a favor, actually, if you really want to tap into it, in my opinion. So
awesome.
Okay,
ladies and gentlemen, we're at halfway. Are we, brothers?
We are. Yeah.
Okay.
Picky time.
The segment of this week's photos is brought to you by these two handsome young men here.
Look at that. My son, that was us at last weekend on Saturday at Guns N' Roses in Melbourne, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And, mate, that kid, I haven't seen him throwing his arms up in the air and screaming as loud as that ever. He was just loved it. So every song that come on that he knew, he just threw his hands up in the air and screamed like he was just like that made the event for me just even more special. So a bit surreal moment for me, actually. I saw them in the early 90s at Eastern Creek in Sydney. I've seen them since then as well, but this is the first time, obviously, I've taken my son to a band that I went and saw in the 90s. So it's really surreal for me to sit there and watch my son react to the songs the way that I did. It was just surreal. I have to say that.
Cool.
Well done.
Yeah. Were they good, Brad? How did they go?
Oh, they were great, man.
Were they great, really? Yeah.
You can't knock them. I mean, they're old boys.
No.
They're still doing well, Slash was the star, but we're here to talk about Black Sabbath.
Sorry, you know me, off on a tangent, whatever.
That's it. So here's some really good pictures of at Andrew's dugout, which are fantastic, actually.
Yeah, so that's 71. That's from Texas. So, yeah, we've got some more pics there, but notice how they're wearing, the crosses, the crucifixes, and Tony with his SG.
Yep.
So this is an interesting, that we've chucked this in here too, ladies and gentlemen, because we've mentioned it a couple of times already, So if you were smart enough and went and read some other articles back in the day, you'd find where Black Sabbath were actually exactly telling you exactly what they were singing about. And, this is one article where Anti-Black Magic says Sabbath, They were also cashing in, like we were saying before, but they were also taking every opportunity, Simon, to articulate the fact that they were musicians, talking about big subjects, Simon. So,
absolutely, yeah.
The various album covers. And that's one of Brad's favourite shots there of these hairy 70s monsters. Look at them.
Yes. And have you noticed in all their promo photos, they very rarely smile. It was it was intentional, in my opinion. There you go.
Yeah. Hold on, bro. Hold on. I'll just get over here. And there's a pic there that we've got of Ozzy looking charming. Pair of shorts on there with his crucifix. We were talking in the green room, and I noticed Jonas made a comment earlier about Downer Rock. I wasn't aware of the term Downer Rock as it was applied to the band in the early 1970s. I thought it was, a term that that people were talking about from the 90s onwards. but certainly in the early 1970s, they were described as a downer rock band. So that was an interesting experience for me. That's the 45 cover of Children of the Grave. Look at that.
Now look badass in that photo. Doesn't Tony Iommi look a little bit scary with that moustache?
Brad, I reckon you should grow a moustache, bro. I reckon there's some love child stuff going on there, eh?
When I grew that goatee this year, he gave me a bit of stick for that, so I had to shave it off. That's a great photo.
That's from the same era. That's from 71. I don't know where that pic is taken, but notice they're wearing platforms.
Yep. 100%.
Again, so they went from there, playing obviously to an outside concert, Simon, clearly, and here they were in a hall. So they played anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah.
That's from Texas again. That's Aussie. And Tony. That's an interesting pic, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Look at Aussie. He looks a bit lost there.
He looks really young, doesn't he, Aussie, in that picture?
Yeah. Lost or something else.
Yeah. That's a poster from a tour to the States.
Yep. Whiskey a go-go.
And we've got some other pics here that we're going to show, ladies and gentlemen, that Brad can quickly talk about, if that's okay, if we can do it at the same time, bro. Your gig pics, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this was last night. I played at a place in Sale in Gippsland, which is about 3.5 hours away. It's a theatre called The Wedge, which is really beautiful, and that was my office for the night. There's my lovely girls. They were sitting idle in the seat, watching intently, waiting to be played. So that's the Mighty Marshall, the hometown advantage of playing it not interstate. I can use my own gear, so that was great to use my own Marshall again after so many gigs of just backline hire. That's the stage setup. So you got a couch, a TV, light, keyboards, drum kit, bass rig. It's all there, everything you need, plus a screen on the back with Donkey Kong. That's the pedal board, which is going to get a revamp through Christmas. So yeah, very, very minimalistic. Andrew dug this up from somewhere. That was last night at the Wedge. So you can see 2 keyboards, bass, drums, and some knucklehead on the left there on a little guitar. 2 vocals.
Cool.
Yeah. So it was a fun night. Always a fun gig down there in Sale. Gotta love it.
Oh dear.
That's a great photo.
What am I like, honestly?
Yes. Well, that was the clickbait, the last one.
Yes.
So there's some good comments here. John is saying beautiful venue. Yep.
Yeah, it was a beautiful venue. Beautiful venue, and we've played there a fair few times now. We're back there next year again, which is great. So,
not for you, the corner of a pub, Mr. Cook. I notice.
Oh,
I'm sure you've done. I'm sure you've done a few. It's all right. You seem to play in these really nice theatres. Hats off to you. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Look, we've done our fair share of pub gigs.
Yeah,
As well.
I'm sure, yes.
Oven saying, bring back the giant mustache.
Yes. Well, in general, I hope he's talking about, not with me.
Start an online poll.
I've already changed my name to Brad Sabbath. If I grow a moustache, I would not think Miami. I've got to cut a fringe then, don't I?
No, we'll have to do a DNA test, bro.
Oh God!
I think you ought to be a little careful of this, Mr. Walton, as his mother is in the chat.
I know.
Casting aspersions about. Frankly, probably not a good idea. Just saying. Back away from the danger area.
I'm just joking.
Back away from it. Leave it.
Oh, let's pull it back on the track.
Smoking gun.
Yeah. Back to work.
All right. So the side one is over. We hit side two. And it starts off with a wonderful. It is like an introduction to the next song, but I'm going to call it a song on its own. It's an instrumental. It goes for 1.5 minutes. It's a beautiful acoustic piece from Tony Iommi. Some delicate finger picking. Very much a classical chord progression. Truly highlights the flexibility of Tony Iommi, especially knowing full well, his limitations of what happened to him with his fingertips. It's got a wonderful light feel, and then leads us into the next song, which is another big classic heavy song. So, I think it's wonderful. I gave it 9 out of 10. It's never a skip for me, gentlemen. Simon.
Yeah. Yes, not much to add to that. Yeah, lovely. It's an interesting way to open the second side, isn't it?
Yeah.
Normally you'd open the second side with a really big song. So Lord of this World would be the one you would tank into. And yet they just put this very delicate kind of, melodic acoustic piece, finger-picked acoustic piece at the beginning, which is interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd give it an 8 out of 10 and never a skip. I absolutely would never skip. It's lovely. It's a lovely piece. Andrew.
Yeah, same here. It's got a nice plush acoustic tone. Love it, and just gives that just a little bit of contrast before you bang into the next number. But I've got to agree with Brad too. That's a showcase for Tony Iommi and his musicianship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's leads us
and
into.
Also, sorry, Brad. I was just going to say, and also, no second thoughts about doing a very folky thing as an intro to side two. No, no kind of like, it's not really within our style or whatever. They just did it, put it on. Fantastic. Gives it a real,
if they were going to campaign for nuclear disarmament meetings to hook up with people and check out what the vibe's going on, they would have been listening and probably playing a lot of these acoustic folk songs, Simon. So it wouldn't be foreign to these guys, would it?
No, absolutely not. And very much in key with 1971, which is all about that diversity and and variety on albums and things. And nothing's out of bounds. You're not bound by a genre. You're not bound by a particular style of music that you might be doing. Not in 1971. You're just exploring music and seeing what you can get. So fantastic about that.
Oh, I agree.
Anyway, sorry, Brad. Yes.
No, I agree. Again, I see it as a standalone song, but it does lead very well into the next song, which is another big song.
Sure.
Lord of This World. The classic riff from Tony Iommi in the intro. Some fantastic drumming from, Bill Ward in this is just fantastic in this song. The verses take on a new riff as well. It's a very sludgy riff. So you've got your intro, then it goes into a verse riff, which is almost like a new riff altogether. Ozzy comes in singing. You're searching for your minds, don't know where to start, with such conviction. I mean, that's you don't know listening to the lyrical content and the way he's singing, you don't know what's going on. It sort of like confuses you. You've got to really listen to it. I listened to this album about 6 or 7 times this weekend on my journey just to really go through this. And I really think Ozzy sounds amazing on this track. We have another classic Tony Iommi guitar solo. He truly is an amazing guitar player. And in my opinion, he's not only the amazing riff lord that everyone knows him to be, but he's a remarkable lead guitar player as well. His phrasing with his playing, truly, I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He gets heaps of credit for his riffs, but I think well done, Tony, considering, his limitations and the things that, you wouldn't know. If you didn't know that the guitarist had 2 fingers severed, you wouldn't actually know that, the way he plays, that he's actually got severed fingers with, thimbles or whatever they are over the top, which we've explained in another. So that's after that solo goes back into a verse riff again. It's like another classic Journey song. 4 minutes 11. There's another change of pace. Another guitar solo from Tony. I love, his multi-tracking, the way he does his lead guitar tracking, the solos with the split and the panning. It's classic Tony Iommi all over this one. The outro's tough as nails. I love this song. It's a 10 out of 10 for me, never a skip, and a really good highlight for Tony Iommi as well. Simon.
Yes, absolutely. It's as I've said, I think that it does the same as lots of the other big tracks on here, is that it has those different riffs in different sections. So putting all those riffs together, it has a chorus riff. This is what I think when I first noticed it. And I went back and listened to others and thought, blimey, yeah, they do this all the time. They have they have a singing chorus. They just have they have an instrumental chorus, which is really cool. Yeah. I like the double track, the solo with the double tracked guitars that don't quite play the same thing, which is great. It's like, they're clearly not attempting to play the same thing. And, when he goes off, he starts off the same, and then they kind of branch out and divide, which is really good. I think that gives them a real added piece of interest, really, that just double tracking them doesn't, wouldn't give. Twin guitars at the end as well. It's a similar thing. It's a classic Sabbath, 9 out of 10 for me, never a skip. And of course down tuned as well. It's one of the other down tuned riffs on this.
Good point.
Yeah. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm glad Brad mentioned Ozzy's vocals, because for me, you've got a tumble dryer of sounds going on here with this song. It's just and in this tumble dryer of commotion, you've got this wonderful song happening, and Ozzy's vocals salutes the song with some with a technicality that carries with it considerable pain in his vocals, and because of that, because of the genuineness I'm hearing in his vocal on this song, it just gives it that extra power. And I'm not going to talk about the musical side of things on the song. I'll skip the notes because my co-hosts have already mentioned that. But I think that technicality that Ozzy has on this song, it's a remarkable vocal. I'm not saying that the previous songs on side one are subpar, but I really think on this one he's definitely doing something well. An underrated vocalist, one of his best vocal performances ever. I'm giving this a solid 9.5 out of 10 as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
No timeouts yet, gentlemen. No timeouts.
No.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No. Yeah, I think for us, I try not to rank these like biased because I love Black Sabbath so much, but when I give it 10 out of 10 or 100 out of 10, it's because the song really connects with me. But even if it, 9 or an 8, I'd still think it's a good score for these songs, is what I'm getting at.
It's very consistent, this record. It's consistently got really good, interesting, well done tracks, and you can't you can't knock it for that,
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're up to Solitude, which is the second last song of the album, and that it takes what I call a complete spin from majority of the album's very dark, very heavy, and they put this here, and I know we've spoken about this a lot in other albums, Simon. You've mentioned it. The second last song is always like that song that is the one that you would put there because it doesn't fit anywhere else on the album. You want to finish with the songs. But I love this song. I think Solitude's beautiful, and it's a wonderfully played mellow song for the second last song of the album. Some wonderful chord changes. It's mellow. Really been concentrating on listening to this song over the last week, and listening to Geezer Butler playing on this song was fantastic. Ozzy's like breathtaking and mellow on this song. The guitar solo from Tony Iommi is very mellow. The less is more thing, lots of space, creates a lot of what I like to call a bit of tension there, but he's between the lines, and I love the reverb they have on his guitar as well. I'll admit, as a young boy, I used to skip this track. I used to want to hear the heavier stuff from Sabbath, and I didn't want it to skip the more mellower tracks and stuff like that. But obviously a bit older and a bit more in touch with music and things like that. Now listening to it in the context of a record, it really stands out as being a highlight to me, this song. And for that reason, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. It's never a skip. Simon.
No.
Good.
Agree. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's you're right. It is a bit of a departure, but I think that actually, if you think about the instrumental tracks, Orchid and that have come before it, that Embryo as well, that it's kind of in keeping with those and in keeping with an exploration of other musical styles, not just the heavy riff, and a recognition that contrast, as we've discussed on albums, contrast is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And this is clearly a contrast between the last track and the next track, and it I think it sandwiches them really well. I think for me it has a kind of very apparently the flute playing was inspired by his brief gig in Jethro Tull. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but it also reminded me, the flute reminded me of that other great Birmingham band, the Moody Blues. Of course, one of the other bands that have a flute in them. Yeah, it has a kind of progressive feel to it for me, but also I felt the guitar, the riff at the beginning is very kind of 60s San Francisco band riff. It has that kind of West Coast feel to it. Yeah. I could hear someone like Quicksilver Messenger Service or something like that doing that type of riff, different kind of song. But the first two lines clearly is a rewrite of, ladies and gentlemen, what is the first two lines, the first line of this album? What is it a rewrite of? See if you noticed. My name, it means nothing. My fortune is less, is the opening line. What's that a rewrite of? Any ideas? No, it's before your time. Oh, my name, it ain't nothing. My age, it means less. Is Bob Dylan's God on its side? Clearly, Ozzy has, or get somebody, Geezer has rewritten that line slightly.
Morrow
struck me like, wait a minute, I've heard that line before. Don't need to wander off far to find out where it is. So that's my rock professor bit of this song. Is
well, I was just about to say, only you would know that.
Well, that's the advantage of being old. You see, is I've heard a lot of God on the side is early Dylan, but I think that there's lots of percussion in the background as well. There's lots of textural percussion going on. There's that kind of backwards piano, is it in the thing? I certainly seem to be some sort of I don't know whether there's some sort of a backwards piano going on in it as well for extra texture. So lots of texture. Love the flute playing as well. I think that gives it a real vibe. 9.5 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. And I was great record, great track.
Great.
Andrew.
Cheers, guys. Just want to let people know that we're streaming on our Twitter account too. We don't stream a lot on Twitter, and we're also streaming on our British Electric Blues Facebook group as well. So if you are watching over there, or if you are going to watch a replay from over there, please let us know. Make a comment on the video after. We'd appreciate it. I knew this song would put us in a different space because of the contrast on it, and I love the intro. That it's got a cavernous depth to it in that intro, and the tone is delicate, and I think it's that delicate tone on this song. And that kind of fragileness that you have with it, as opposed to all the other songs and riffs on here, that is a secret weapon, Simon. You know. And I love that. I'm just seeing here that there's a great comment here by Johnny Heartbreaker that it's the Planet Caravan on this album. Got to agree. But I have to back up with what Brad said too, and I think the Rock Professor echoed it as well. You've got to have some jam in between the two pieces of sponge cake, But yeah, and or cream or whatever you want. You got to have something in between the two different layers, and I think the song does it. I could understand why Brad would have skipped this song back in the day. I would have too. I would have back in the day, but listening to it about half a dozen times over the last couple of days especially, all told probably about 13 or 14 times, Spotify will tell you if you want to know. Just go and see Spotify, and it's going to give you everything that you've seen, Spotify. Everything that you've done. Look, I love it. I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10. But I would never skip it, Brad.
Yeah. No, it's good.
No,
it's good. Yeah, if you skipped it, you'd get timed out.
Yeah. No. But I probably did back in the day.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. For me, my musical taste changed over the years, like everyone's. So up to the last track on the album, and I'm by this point on the album, I'm like, okay, what's next? You know what's coming, but I'm like, what's next? What's next? And then this riff comes in, and how good is that riff? Like, let's be honest, it's bloody fantastic. I think every rock guitar player in history would love to come up with a riff like this of their own. It's unbelievable. I love how the drums come in. That it's got that feel where it's really sludgy. Geezer Butler, he's playing that riff as well. He's doubling that riff. At the 1 minute 15 mark, the song takes a new, turn. It's got a different pace. It goes on. It's tough as nails. Ozzy comes in singing fantastically here. We hear some sludgy power coming from the band on this track. Now, 3 minutes, 5 seconds, we've got a double time. Bill Ward, he's really pushing that riff, and it sounds fantastic. Ozzy sings across the top of that riff. The way he does that, I know, Dio used to sing, across the top of a riff instead of singing the riff. And I know Ozzy used to get a lot of slack that he would just sing the riff, but he's not singing the riff here. And I wanted to point that out. He does that fantastically.
Correct.
And then at that 3 minutes 35 mark, I think it is, it goes back into that sludgy riff again. We've got that double sort of tracked guitar solo from Tony Iommi again. And then you got that stabbing accent of doom from the band. Another solo. I love how flappy that bass sounds underneath from Geezer Butler. It's just it's epic. It's epic. And I love the ending of the song as well. Look, last track on the album, it ends an absolute epic album off in a wonderful way. I gave it 10 out of 10. Never a skip for me, Simon.
Yes, couldn't agree more. It's again, it has some substance to it. It has a subject. It's about the Earth becoming so terrible that a group of astronauts fly off into space to try and find a new planet to live on. Which is reasonably pertinent for now, to be honest. It's down-tuned the guitar by 1.5 step as well. This is the other track on there that's, as you say, classic Sabbath riff, heavy riff at the beginning. Yep. Again, it's got that chorus riff without the chorus singing kind of thing. I don't think that I've ever thought that yes, Ozzy does sing the riff, but I thought that was just what Sabbath did, unlike quite a lot of other bands, where the singer doesn't sing the riff. It's just a thing, isn't it? It's a feature of what Sabbath do and the way that they approach doing a song. My guess is that sometimes probably Ozzy might have composed the riff, and that's his way of composing it. This is how it goes. Da, 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 and then Naomi plays it, but then he's got, that's his melody line, so he sings it as well. But so that's really cool. I think that, as you say, Brad, that double time thing is very Sabbath as well, isn't it? Where they start off slowly and then they have this like fast bit in the middle, and then they kind of back off again. There's other Sabbath tracks that do that as well.
Yeah,
and that thing at the end about the two guitars that again playing slightly differently. It's not not attempting to just have twin guitars playing the same thing. It's not quite harmony guitars, but it's not completely the same thing. So that's really cool as well. I too gave this a 10 out of 10 and never a skip. So a fantastic ending to a record. Andrew.
Just want to do a shout out to John ZD351.
Morning, John.
Good to see you, brother. I hope you ate lots of food at the Christmas party. No point going to Christmas parties if you're coming home hungry.
Plenty of pigs in blankets.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Look, just bear with me a little bit, ladies and gentlemen, because on this Into the Void. Okay, so you got a clamorous riff going on, and it's a declaration, Brad, that Tony Iommi is the real Iron Man. If you didn't know that, this song clearly is going to solve that question once and for all for anybody and everybody for all time. And then you've got this wonderful vocals that Brad has mentioned before. And I've made a note here. You've got this parasite of distress that Ozzy has with his vocals on the song, And when I say a parasite, I'm not meaning like this thing that's just like sucking off it and just draining it out of all its power. He could be. I don't know. But he's definitely on top of the song, and he's doing something that he hasn't done before. And Brad mentioned it before, and I couldn't quite get it. But he wasn't. What did you say, bro? He was singing. He wasn't singing. He was singing above the riff.
Yeah, singing over the riff, not with it. Like
Yes.
Like, instead of doing that.
Yes.
Singing over it. Dio.
Correct. And so this is where he's been a parasite, because he's yeah, I don't know, that's just me. I don't know. I don't know. I'll find a better word. Maybe later on I'll type in another word, and if anyone's watching from these Black Sabbath groups and Andrew called them a parasite. I didn't. I didn't mean it like that.
Be careful.
I mean,
you might get a witch's still put on you, mate. Be careful.
Yeah.
I just mean that they're just feeding off each other, and I think this is one of the great things that the song does. and that riff, the thud of doom, the bass and drums, the cohesiveness that they have together is remarkable. I'm not going to say anything more than what than my other co-hosts have said, other than my ranking from now on. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. Brad, one of my favourite tracks. Yeah. And I don't think it was one of my favourite tracks before I listened to this album.
Yeah.
I don't think it was one of my favourite Black Sabbath tracks. So walking away from this album after listening to it for a couple of weeks, that was a remarkable thing for me to walk away. I think Sweet Leaf would have been my favourite track.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Up
the most
until
well-known one, isn't it? But...
Yeah, up until this track here, one of the standout tracks on the album.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, it's a wonderful way to end the album too. You always want to end on a strong note, I think. Whether it's
absolutely,
I think it's great.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me, guys, I listened to some, is that Bill Ward's drumming. It's not particularly swing drumming, is it? There's not a lot of swing, but there's a lot of power and a lot of pushing it along, entirely in keeping with what the songs need and what type of band Sabbath are.
Well, if you remember, Simon, you mentioned the drumming on this song. This is the one that he had that problem with, Bill Ward.
Yeah.
He wanted to give up. He goes, to hell with it. I'm not doing this. I'm going home.
Throwing down his sticks.
Get another drummer. I'm done.
Yeah.
So, but I agree. He always played for the song. And if you go through the Sabbath catalog, for example, you listen to any Sabbath song, but I'm trying to think of an iconic one, War Pigs.
Yeah.
Listen to the drumming in that. Imagine War Pigs without Bill Ward's drumming.
And completely, absolutely, yeah. And it wouldn't work if it had these riffs don't require that kind of swing drumming. And I think
Symptom of the Universe, for example, those drum fills he does, they're not spot on, but they need to be that way. I've heard bands cover Symptom of the Universe, and it sounds wrong if they try to perfect the drum fills. It's got to be Bill Ward's way. So I just want to say thank you, gentlemen, for letting me indulge with one of my teenage favorite records.
We're here to please, brother. We're here to please, and we've done a remarkable back catalogue of albums on the channel, and it's not quite the end of the shows for the year. We're getting close to it, Simon and Brad. We've got a couple of more shows lined up, but certainly the last rankings of the tracks for the channel for the year.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we finished on a good note like this one.
I think it's really great to go back to these albums and kind of revisit them and kind of relook at them. As they're 51 years ago since it was released. It's to kind of revisit it and look back at it and go, what type of album is it? What does it do? What's his influence and all those things? Because you can see those things clearly from where we are now, whereas you couldn't then. It was very much just another album. But I think it's it's kept its interest. I think it's kept its creativity. It's kept its vision of what it wanted to do. What they wanted to do as a band, and focused and. And it has that kind of, I think that kind of lyrical content that makes it interesting, because it's quite grounded in reality, actually.
Correct.
There's a lot of,
master
addressing
of reality.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Yes, you can thank me later.
Yep.
But grounding, in the subjects of the day, and those subjects still resonate now. I think, and I think that, that it's not just about, girls and whatever. It's
Nothing
it's
wrong
about
with
other
that,
stuff as well. Nothing wrong with that, but this album is not that. It goes to other areas, and I think it's successful in going to those other areas. And you called us as don't run out of albums. I think not much danger of that, Hugh.
Ain't gonna happen, brother. And we certainly look forward to you coming on and joining us for a couple of co-hosting jaunts with us next year. But we've got a couple of shows left on the channel. We're going to do, like I said at the beginning of the show, we've got our Christmas show, and it's a wonderful opportunity for you guys all to jump on. We're going to be streaming on the channel for certainly 6 to 8 hours. So Gretch Zeppelin, Hugh, jump on. John ZD351, jump on.
Yes.
Spend 5 minutes, half an hour.
Hugh.
Wish everybody Merry Christmases and all that kind of stuff, and we'll just hang out, and we're going to nail a date and a time, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel for the Rock Professor and I and Brad to talk about our top 5 things, sad 5 things, disappointments, whatever, for the year, because I think you got to talk about some of those things too that happened. And obviously, because we're always eternally optimistic, 5 great things that we want to happen or see happen in the next 12 months. So that's always a good show.
Yes, 100%.
Please share our channel, ladies and gentlemen, and subscribe to our friends' channels as well on our page. Please go and subscribe to them.
Yes. And thank you to all the new subscribers if you've watched to this point. And I'll urge Andrew to attach onto this show card, all the Black Sabbath shows have already done. Andrew, if you're not already going to do that, I just remind you now.
Do you know what I will do? Actually, I will set up a playlist.
Okay.
I think as well. I will set up a playlist especially for Black Sabbath. We're starting to get to, having a catalogue now where we can start doing that, so we can have separate playlists rather than the Ranking the Tracks playlist.
Yeah.
We've got one set up for Ranking the Tracks. We've got our Bro Downs. Yep. We've got the EVH. We've got the Zoso show, and we've got a Clapton, I think. Yep. So we can do lots of playlists. But I'll do that, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. So anyone who's subscribed from the Black Sabbath Facebook pages, thank you, and go check out the new playlist Andrew's going to do. And I'm sure if you like Black Sabbath, you like Led Zeppelin, so check that out while you're there.
And if you want to come on, you want to come on and hang out with Brad and I.
Yep.
And the Rock Professor. You want to come on?
If you want to come on with Brad and I, never mind that bloke at the bottom. Kick him off.
I was given that poetic, gentle space.
You were.
And the Rock
I
Professor.
know you were. But where would we be if I couldn't tease you? That's no fun.
If you want to come on, we'll hang out. Are we out of here?
Structure of the show.
We're out of here.
That's how it works. Yeah. See you next week, kids. Have a good week. Take it easy.
Peace. Bye-bye. Happy Black Sabbath.
Yeah. Yes.
Happy Black Sabbath.
Half late in the morning for me. Absolutely.
Happy Black Sabbath.
We're off to church.
Happy Black Sabbath.
Happy Black Sabbath.
Okay, because it's hold on. Because it's in getting close to the end of the year, I'm going to start playing. So I've got some video. So you guys remember this video?
Now it's time for Brad's Tech and Tone Tips.
What happened to that segment?
Brilliant.
We're going back to them, bro. So you want to zip it.
So
you want to zip
get your teacher hat on, Brad. You're on. Get that guitar right.
Bye.
Take care all. See you next week.